Some messages don't need words.
The phone buzzed against the kitchen counter at 2:17 a.m., lighting up with a message that would end my marriage and begin something much darker. I wasn't supposed to see it. Melissa had forgotten her second phone, the one she thought I didn't know about, charging next to the coffee maker. The screen showed a preview of a text from R. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow night. Wear the red dress. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. Nathan Cole, mild-mannered tech repairman standing in his kitchen in boxer shorts, staring at proof his wife was screwing someone whose name started with R. I should have been devastated. Instead, I felt something colder settling in my chest. I unlocked the phone. Melissa never was good with passwords, still used our wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. The messages went back 3 months. Detailed plans, hotel rooms, complaints about me. He's so boring, R, just fixes his little computers and never talks. You make me feel alive. Then I found the photos. Sheriff Daniel Rook. The same man who'd pulled me over for speeding last month and let me off with a warning because we're neighbors. He was buried between my wife's legs in a motel room I recognized, the Pine Valley Inn, 20 minutes outside town. I scrolled through dozens of images, videos, my wife's face twisted in pleasure I hadn't seen in years. Timestamps showed they'd been there while I was home, waiting with dinner getting cold, wondering why she was working late again. But it was the last message that made my stomach turn. Don't worry about Nathan. He's too weak to do anything, even if he found out. Men like him just roll over and take it. I set the phone down carefully, walked to my workshop in the garage, sat at my bench, surrounded by broken electronics, and considered my options. In movies, the betrayed husband either breaks down crying or flies into a rage. I did neither. I opened my laptop and started researching Sheriff Daniel Rook, tax records, property holdings, financial statements. By dawn, I knew more about him than his own mother did. Then I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The confrontation came sooner than expected. I was pumping gas at Murphy's Station on Route 9 when a shadow fell across the pump. Big guy, 6'4", wearing a denim jacket despite the Arizona heat, face like a catcher's mitt, and hands that had seen serious work. You Nathan Cole? He asked, voice like gravel in a blender. Depends who's asking. Name's Brick. Got a message for you. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell tobacco and cheap cologne. You need to back off. She's not yours anymore. I kept pumping gas, not looking at him. I'm sorry. I think you have me confused with someone else. Don't play dumb, computer boy. You know what I'm talking about. Your wife's moved on. Time you did the same. And if I don't? Brick's hand moved to his jacket. Then we'll have problems. I finished pumping, hung up the nozzle, and turned to face him fully. You know what's interesting about threats, Brick? They only work if the person you're threatening has something to lose. Everyone's got something to lose. Not me. Not anymore. I started walking toward my truck. That's when he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. The punch came fast, caught me across the jaw, and sent me stumbling against the pump. Several people at other pumps turned to look. Next time won't be so gentle, Brick said, loud enough for the audience. Stay away from what ain't yours. I wiped red stains from my lip and smiled. Thank you. What? You just gave me everything I needed. Brick looked confused as I climbed into my truck and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I watched him standing there, probably wondering what the hell I meant. He'd find out soon enough. Cody Lang lived in a single-wide trailer 15 miles outside town, surrounded by desert scrub and the kind of silence that came from being truly alone. We'd been friends since high school, but that was before Afghanistan changed him. Before he came back with scars on the outside and something broken on the inside. I knocked on his door at sunset. It took 5 minutes before he answered, holding a beer in one hand and a pistol in the other. Nathan. Jesus, what happened to your face? Can I come in? He stepped aside, and I entered his world. Sparse furniture, clean surfaces, everything organized with military precision. Maps on the walls, books about tactics and survival. The smell of gun oil and loneliness. Haven't seen you in 2 years, Cody said, setting the pistol on a side table. What brings you out to paradise? I need help. What kind of help? I told him everything. About Melissa, about Rook, about Brick and the gas station. Cody listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each detail. So, what do you want to do about it? He asked when I finished. I want them gone. Not dead, gone. I want them to lose everything that matters to them the same way they took everything from me. Cody was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to a tool cabinet in the corner. You ever done this before? No. He pulled out a .357 Magnum revolver, checked the cylinder, and handed it to me. The weight surprised me. Solid, purposeful, heavy with potential. First rule of warfare, Cody said, is know your enemy. Second rule is be prepared for anything. You want to play with the big boys, you need to understand the rules. I'm not looking to end anyone. Maybe not, but they might be looking to end you. Especially if you start making them uncomfortable. He gestured toward the door. Come on, let's see what you're made of. We spent the next 3 hours in his backyard shooting at targets. The Magnum kicked like a mule and made my ears ring despite the protection. But by the end of the session, I could hit a beer can at 20 yards. You're a natural, Cody said as we cleaned up. Question is, what are you planning to do with this new skill? I'm going to introduce myself properly. When? Tomorrow night. They're meeting at Romano's for dinner. Cody studied my face. You sure about this? Once you cross this line, there's no going back. I crossed the line the moment I found out my wife was sleeping with another man in a motel room while I waited at home with dinner. I tucked the Magnum into my waistband. Now I'm just evening the score. Romano's was busy for a Thursday night. I sat at the bar nursing a beer and watching the entrance until they arrived. Melissa wore the red dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She looked radiant, laughing at something Rook said as he held the door for her. They were seated in a corner booth, intimate and cozy. I waited until they'd ordered drinks before making my move. Evening, folks, I said, sliding into the booth next to Melissa. She jumped like she'd been electrocuted. Nathan, what are you? Quiet, honey. Daddy's talking. I looked across the table at Rook, who was already reaching for something inside his jacket. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Sheriff. You need to leave, Rook said, his voice steady but his eyes showing the first hint of concern. This is a private dinner. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife is on a date with another man. I reached under the table and let my hand rest on the Magnum's grip. That seems like something a husband should be concerned about. Melissa's face had gone white. Nathan, please. We can talk about this at home. No, I think we'll talk about it right here, right now. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my voice conversational. See, I've been doing some research, Sheriff. Amazing what you can find in public records if you know where to look. Rook's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? Property seizures, asset forfeitures. Amazing how much money the sheriff's department has been bringing in lately. And how much of it seems to find its way into your personal accounts. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I smiled, letting my hand move closer to the tool. You know what I love about revolvers, Sheriff? No safety switch. Like me right now. I let that sink in. Your balls are in a very uncomfortable place right now. The color drained from Rook's face. Around us, other diners continued eating and talking, oblivious to the drama playing out in the corner booth. I turned to Melissa. You were supposed to be the loyal one. You remember those vows, for better or worse? Sickness and health? Well, darling, things are about to get much worse. Nathan, stop, she whispered. People are watching. Let them watch. I want them to see what happens when you cross a man who fixes things. Because what I fix best, I leaned closer, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper, is endings. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Leave now, Sheriff, and you'll only lose your job and your reputation. Stay in my town, keep seeing my wife, and I'll dismantle your life piece by piece. Rook's hand was still inside his jacket, but he hadn't drawn whatever he was carrying. Smart man. This isn't over, he said through gritted teeth. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving my beer unfinished and my marriage officially dead. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, watching through the windows as they argued. Finally, Rook threw money on the table and stormed out. Melissa followed, her red dress bright against the darkness. Phase 1 was complete. The next morning, I drove to the county courthouse and spent 6 hours in the records office. Property deeds, marriage licenses, business filings, court documents, all public information if you knew how to look. Sheriff Daniel Rook was a busy man. In addition to his law enforcement salary, he owned 3 rental properties, had investments in 2 local businesses, and somehow managed to afford a brand new Ford F-350 and a base boat. Impressive for a public servant making $50,000 a year. More interesting were the arrest records. Pills busts where large amounts of cash had been seized, but smaller amounts had been logged into evidence. Property seizures where items had been auctioned at below-market prices to buyers who turned out to be Rook's relatives or business partners. By noon, I had enough evidence to end his career and probably send him to prison. But that would be too quick, too easy. I wanted him to feel what I felt, the slow burn of betrayal, the gradual realization that everything you thought was solid was actually built on sand. I made photocopies of the most damaging documents and drove to the Pine Valley Inn. The desk clerk, a college kid with bad acne and worse posture, was more than willing to check his computer system for a $20 tip. "Yeah, they've been coming in every Thursday for 3 months," he said, showing me the registration records. "Always pay cash, always use fake names, but it's the same room every time. Number 237. They here today?" "Supposed to be. Sheriff paid for 2 nights this week." I thanked him and drove home to plan the next phase. Melissa's car was gone. Probably at work or maybe running errands, pretending our marriage was still salvageable. I downloaded the photos from her phone to my laptop and backed them up to 3 different cloud storage accounts. Insurance. Then I called internal affairs for the county sheriff's department. "This is Lieutenant Harris. How can I help you?" "I have information about financial irregularities involving Sheriff Rook. Cash discrepancies from pills seizures and property forfeitures." "What kind of information?" "Documentation, bank records, witness statements." "The works." There was a pause. "Can you come in tomorrow morning, say 9 o'clock? "I'll be there." I hung up and smiled. Rook thought he was dealing with a weak, passive husband. He was about to learn the difference between weak and patient. Brick found me first. I was leaving the hardware store with supplies for my next project when he stepped out from behind a pickup truck. This time he wasn't alone. 2 other guys, both built like construction workers, flanked him on either side. "Thought I told you to back off," Brick said, cracking his knuckles. "You did. I chose not to listen. Bad choice." They came at me in the parking lot, in broad daylight, like they owned the town. Maybe they did. Maybe Rook had enough local muscle on his payroll that he figured I'd just disappear and no one would ask questions. The first punch broke my nose. The second cracked a rib. "Next time we won't be so nice," Brick said as they walked away. I lay there for 5 minutes, letting other customers help me to my feet and ask if I needed an ambulance. I said no, thanked them, and drove straight to Cody's trailer. "Jesus Christ," he said when he saw me. "What happened?" "Phase 2. He cleaned my cuts and taped my ribs while I explained my plan. When I finished, Cody was grinning like a wolf. "You want me to what now?" "Help me send a message they'll understand." "Nathan, what you're talking about is kidnapping." "No, what I'm talking about is having a conversation. A very persuasive conversation." Cody looked at me for a long moment. "You know there's no coming back from this, right? You do this, you're not the same man anymore." "Good. The old man was weak." 3 days later, we grabbed Brick outside a bar on the outskirts of town. Cody disabled his truck while I approached him with the Magnum drawn. "Get in," I said, pointing to my pickup. "Screw you." I put a round into his front tire. "Get in, or the next one goes into your kneecap." Brick got in. We drove him to an abandoned warehouse on the industrial side of town, a place Cody had scouted earlier. Inside, we tied him to a chair and waited for him to sober up. "You boys are in deep crap," Brick said when he came to. "You know who I work for?" "I know exactly who you work for," I said, pulling up a chair across from him. "Question is, does he know where you are right now?" Brick's confidence flickered. "See, I called your boss and told him you were skimming money from collections. Showed him bank records proving you've been holding back 20% of everything you've been bringing in." "That's bullcrap." "Is it?" I showed him a manila folder. "Because these deposits match up pretty well with your beating schedule. Every time you collect from someone, money shows up in your account the next day. Those are fake. Maybe, but your boss doesn't know that. As far as he's concerned, you've been stealing from him for 6 months. I leaned forward. "How long do you think it'll take him to find you?" Brick's face had gone pale. "What do you want?" "Information. How many guys does Rook have working for him? Who's on his payroll? Where does he keep his real business records? I don't know nothing about records. Cody stepped out of the shadows holding a pair of bolt cutters. Maybe we should start removing fingers until his memory improves. Wait. Brick looked back and forth between us. Jesus, you guys are serious? Deadly serious. He talked for 2 hours. Names, locations, amounts of money. A network of corruption that went deeper than I'd imagined. Rook had half the town council in his pocket, 3 other deputies taking bribes, and a pills distribution network that stretched across 2 counties. When he was finished, I untied him. That's it? Brick asked. You're letting me go? I'm letting you leave. But if I see you again, if you come near me or anyone I care about, I'll mail copies of everything you just told me to every law enforcement agency in the state. You understand? Brick nodded and stumbled toward the door. He paused at the threshold. You have no idea what you've started, he said. Sure I do. I've started a war, and I plan to win it. The story broke on a Friday morning. Sheriff under investigation for corruption ran across the front page of the local paper, with enough details to make it clear this wasn't just rumor or speculation. I was having coffee at Murphy's Diner when Rook walked in, his uniform wrinkled and his face haggard. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Nathan, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. Sheriff, you look tired. Cut the crap. We both know you're behind this. Behind what? The investigation? That's internal affairs, not me. I just provided them with some interesting reading material. Rook leaned across the table, his voice low and dangerous. You think you're clever, don't you? You think you've won something? I think I've leveled the playing field. This isn't over. You're right. It's just getting started. I finished my coffee and stood up. Oh, and Sheriff, you might want to check your personal vehicles. I heard someone's been tampering with law enforcement property. I left him sitting there and drove home. Melissa's car was in the driveway, which surprised me. She'd been staying at her sister's house since the restaurant incident. I found her in the kitchen, packing dishes into boxes. Moving out? I asked. What choice do I have? You've made it impossible for me to stay in this town. I've made it impossible? That's interesting, considering I'm not the one who's been sleeping with another man for 3 months. She turned to face me, and I saw tears in her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said. How did you mean for it to happen? Did you think I'd never find out? Did you think I'd just accept it and smile? I thought you'd leave. I wanted you to leave. Why didn't you just ask for a divorce? Because... She stopped, looking away. Because you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. Keep the house, keep the security, keep the marriage, and sleep with whoever you wanted on the side. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. Because these photos say otherwise. She looked at the images of herself with Rook and covered her face with her hands. Where did you get those? Your phone. The one you forgot to hide from your boring, weak husband. Nathan, please. Can't we work this out? Can't we try counseling or... No. The word came out harder than I'd intended. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. She finished packing in silence while I watched from the kitchen doorway. When she was done, she carried her boxes to the car and loaded them in the trunk. I'm staying at Janet's until I can find an apartment, she said without looking at me. Good luck with that. I'm sure your sister will love hearing about your extracurricular activities. You told her? I told everyone. The whole town knows, Melissa. That was the point. She got in her car and drove away. I watched until her taillights disappeared, then went inside and poured myself a drink. The house felt bigger somehow, emptier but cleaner, like a weight had been lifted. My phone rang. Cody. You see the news? He asked. About the investigation? Yeah, I saw it. No, the other news. Someone blew up Rook's patrol car last night. I sat up straighter. What? Happened around midnight. Car was parked outside his house. No one was hurt, but it's totaled. Fire department says it was definitely arson. Huh. Any idea who might have done something like that? Oh, I think we both know who did it. Question is, what's he planning next? I smiled and hung up. Whatever Rook was planning, I'd be ready for it. The retaliation came 3 days later. I was working late in my shop when I heard glass breaking in the house. By the time I got inside, they were gone. But the message was clear. Every window on the first floor had been shattered, and someone had spray-painted "dead man" across the living room wall. I called the police, knowing it was useless. The responding officer was Deputy Martinez, one of the names Brick had given me as being on Rook's payroll. "Any idea who might have done this?" Martinez asked, not bothering to dust for prints or take photos. "Probably the same person who's been threatening me all week." "You got any proof of these threats?" "Check with the sheriff. I filed a report after the gas station incident." Martinez looked uncomfortable. "I'll see what I can find." In the meantime, you might want to consider installing a security system. After he left, I called a contractor to board up the windows and a cleaning service to deal with the paint. Then I drove to Cody's place. "They're escalating," I told him. "Expected. Cornered animals get desperate." "What's our next move?" Cody spread out a map of the town on his kitchen table. "We take away his safe spaces, make him paranoid. Make him sloppy." Over the next week, we implemented a campaign of psychological warfare. Dead rats in Rook's mailbox, sugar in his personal vehicle's gas tank, anonymous tips to the IRS about his unreported income, photos of his house taken from different angles left on his windshield to let him know he was being watched. The stress was getting to him. I could see it when I spotted him around town. Bloodshot eyes, trembling hands, the look of a man who wasn't sleeping. His wife filed a restraining order against unknown persons, and he started carrying his service tool even when off duty. But he wasn't backing down. If anything, the pressure was making him more dangerous. That became clear when I came home from work one evening to find my front door standing open. Inside, my house had been systematically searched. Drawers pulled out, furniture overturned, personal papers scattered across the floor. In the bedroom, someone had left a photo on my pillow, a picture of me taken through the window of Cody's trailer. The message on the back was written in block letters. "We know where you go." I called Cody immediately. "Pack a bag and get out," I told him. "They know about you. Let them come." "Cody, I'm serious. These aren't street thugs. Rook's got resources, and he's getting desperate. So are you. So am I. That's what makes this interesting. This isn't a game. No, it's war. And in war, you don't retreat when things get difficult. You press the attack." He was right. But that didn't make me feel any better about dragging him deeper into this mess. Cody had his own demons to deal with without adding my problems to the list. But he'd made his choice, just like I'd made mine. We were committed now, all the way to whatever ending waited for us. The plan came together over the weekend. Cody had been tracking Rook's movements and discovered a pattern. Every Sunday night, he drove to a storage unit on the east side of town and spent an hour inside Unit 247. "Has to be where he keeps the real records," Cody said. "The ones he can't risk having at home or the office." "How do we get inside?" "We don't. We let him come to us." Cody explained his idea, and I had to admit it was brilliant in its simplicity. We'd create a situation where Rook would have no choice but to expose himself, and we'd be waiting with cameras and backup when he did. Sunday night, I called in an anonymous tip to the fire department about a gas leak at the storage facility. While they evacuated the area, Cody planted surveillance equipment inside Unit 247 and left evidence suggesting someone had been through Rook's files. Then we waited. Rook showed up Monday morning, just as we'd predicted. He spent 20 minutes inside the unit, growing more agitated by the minute as he realized his security had been compromised. When he came out, he was carrying a metal briefcase and talking rapidly into his cell phone. We followed him to a meeting at the Pine Valley Inn, the same motel where he'd been screwing my wife. Room 237. The same room they'd been using for their Thursday afternoon sessions. Through the window, we watched Rook meet with 3 men I didn't recognize. Money changed hands, documents were exchanged, and Cody got it all on video through a telephoto lens. "Bingo," he said, showing me the camera's display screen. "Pills money, falsified evidence logs, and enough corruption to put him away for 20 years. What now? Now we make copies and send them everywhere. FBI, DEA, state police, internal affairs, local media. Cast the net wide enough, and even Rook's connections won't be able to make this disappear." But as we prepared to leave, Rook came out of the motel room alone. He looked directly at our car, smiled, and waved. "Crap," Cody muttered. "He knows we're here." How is that possible? Either we got sloppy, or he's smarter than we gave him credit for. Rook got in his truck and drove away. leaving us sitting in the parking lot with evidence that might or might not be enough to bring him down. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think we just walked into a trap." As if to confirm his words, two sheriff's department vehicles pulled into the parking lot behind us, blocking our exit. Deputy Martinez got out of one car and Deputy Wilson got out of the other. Both had their hands on their tools. "Nathan Cole! Cody Lang! Step out of the vehicle!" Martinez called out. We looked at each other. "You trust me?" Cody asked. "With my life." "Then hold on tight." Cody threw the car in reverse and floored it, ramming through the space between the two patrol cars. Sparks flew as metal scraped against metal, but we broke through and peeled out onto the main road. "Where are we going?" I asked as Cody took a hard right onto a side street, somewhere they won't follow. "Where's that?" "Into the desert. Time to disappear for a while." We ditched the car at an abandoned mine shaft 20 miles outside town and hiked deeper into the desert. Cody had a cache of supplies hidden in a cave system he'd discovered during one of his solitary wandering phases. Food, water, sleeping bags, ammunition, and a satellite phone. "How long can we stay here?" I asked as we settled in for the night. "Long as we need to. Question is, what's your plan now? They know we have the evidence, but they can't be sure what we've done with it. I uploaded everything to multiple cloud storage accounts before we left town. Set up automatic releases if I don't check in every 48 hours. Cody grinned. Insurance. Insurance. Now we wait and see if Rook wants to play chicken with his career. We didn't have to wait long. The satellite phone rang at dawn. "Nathan? This is Sheriff Rook. I think we need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Face to face." "Just you and me." "Why would I agree to that?" "Because your wife is sitting in a holding cell right now, charged with accessory to arson and destruction of public property. Seems someone found evidence linking her to the bombing of my patrol car." My blood went cold. "That's impossible. She wasn't involved. Evidence says otherwise." Funny how evidence works. Sometimes it tells the truth. Sometimes it tells the story you want it to tell. "What do you want?" "Meet me at the old church on Canyon Road, tomorrow at midnight." "Come alone, and I'll consider dropping the charges against your wife." "And if I don't?" "Then Melissa goes to prison for 20 years, and I'll make sure every day of those 20 years is very unpleasant for her." The line went dead. "He's got Melissa," I told Cody. "Could be bluffing. Could be. But I can't take that chance." "Nathan, this is obviously a trap." "I know, but she's still my wife even if she is a cheating witch. I can't let her go to prison for something she didn't do." Cody studied my face. "You're going to meet him." "Yeah. Then I'm going with you." "He said, come alone." "He also said he'd drop the charges, and we both know that's bullcrap. This ends tomorrow night, one way or another." I spent the rest of the day thinking about how I'd gotten to this point. 6 months ago, I'd been a quiet man living a quiet life, fixing computers and coming home to a wife I thought loved me. Now I was hiding in a cave in the desert, planning a confrontation with a corrupt sheriff who held all the cards. But maybe not all the cards. I still had the evidence. And I still had Cody watching my back. And I still had the .357 Magnum tucked into my waistband, loaded and ready. Tomorrow night, we'd find out if that was enough. The old church on Canyon Road had been abandoned for 15 years, its roof partially collapsed and its windows long since shattered by vandals and weather. It sat on a hill overlooking the desert, surrounded by scrub brush and the kind of silence that made you think about mortality. I arrived at 11:45, parking a quarter-mile away and walking the rest of the distance. Cody was already in position on the ridge above the church, invisible in the darkness with his rifle and night vision scope. Rook's truck was parked behind the church. I could see a light inside, probably a flashlight or lantern. I checked my watch. 11:58. Time to end this. I walked through the front door of the church and found Rook standing at the altar, wearing civilian clothes instead of his uniform. He looked older than I remembered, more weathered. "Nathan, thanks for coming. Where's my wife?" "Safe, for now. I want to see her." "Not until we finish our business," Rook gestured to the broken pews around us. "Appropriate setting, don't you think? A place where people used to come to confess their sins." "I'm not here to confess anything." "No, you should be. Arson, assault, harassment, extortion. You've been busy." "Not as busy as you." How many people have you had ended over the years, Rook? How much money have you stolen? How many lives have you destroyed? I've done what I had to do to survive in a world that doesn't give a crap about people like me. Small town sheriff, 47 years old, no college degree, no prospects. You think I wanted to get mixed up with pill sellers and money laundering? Nobody forced you to become a criminal. Didn't they? You think I make enough money on a sheriff's salary to support a family? Put my kids through college? Pay for my wife's medical bills when she got cancer. So you decided to steal it. I decided to take what I could get when I could get it, same as everyone else in this freaking town. Not everyone. No, not everyone. Some people are content to live small, quiet lives, fixing other people's broken crap for minimum wage, while their wives sleep with other men behind their backs. The words hit like a slap, but I kept my expression neutral. Is that supposed to hurt my feelings? It's supposed to make you understand that we're not that different. We both want things we can't have. We both do what we have to do to get them. The difference is, I don't prey on innocent people. Innocent people? Rook laughed. You think your wife is innocent? You think the people in this town are innocent? Everyone's got secrets, Nathan. Everyone's got dirt under their fingernails. Maybe, but not everyone uses their badge to cover it up. The badge is just a piece of metal. Power is what matters. And power means being willing to do things other people won't do. I was getting tired of the philosophical discussion. Where's Melissa? She's in a safe place. Question is, are you ready to make a trade? What kind of trade? Rook reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Evidence showing that you and your friend Cody have been running a pills operation out of his trailer. Photos, bank records, witness statements, very convincing. Fake. Doesn't matter. Real enough to convince a jury. You give me everything you have on me, and I'll destroy this file and release your wife. And if I don't, then you and Cody go to prison for pills selling, and Melissa goes down as an accessory to your bombing spree. Everyone loses except me. I considered his offer. It wasn't much of a choice. Give up everything I'd worked for or watch innocent people go to prison for crimes they didn't commit. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. But what choice do you have? That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Melissa walking through the church doorway, but she wasn't alone. Deputy Martinez was behind her, holding a tool to her head. Sorry, Nathan, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry for everything. Touching reunion, Rook said. Now, about that evidence. I reached into my jacket slowly, pulling out a flash drive. Everything's on here. Photos, documents, recordings, all of it. Toss it over. I threw the drive to him. He caught it and examined it briefly before slipping it into his pocket. You know what the funny thing is? Rook said. I actually liked you, Nathan. You reminded me of myself when I was younger. Quiet, honest, trying to do the right thing. But this world has a way of grinding people like us down until we become something else entirely. I'm nothing like you. Aren't you? You've lied, stolen, assaulted people, committed arson. You've become everything you used to hate just to get revenge on a woman who stopped loving you. She betrayed me. She fell in love with someone else. It happens. Most people get divorced and move on with their lives. But not you. You had to turn it into a war. You made it a war when you sent your thugs after me. I was trying to prevent exactly this situation. I knew you'd found out about the affair, and I knew you were the type who wouldn't let it go quietly. So I tried to scare you off before things got complicated. Well, congratulations. Things are definitely complicated now. Rook nodded to Martinez, who pressed his tool harder against Melissa's temple. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of here and disappear. Leave town, change your name, start over somewhere else. In exchange, your wife gets to live. And you get to continue stealing and ending and destroying lives. I get to survive. In this world, that's the best any of us can hope for. I looked at Melissa, saw the terror in her eyes, and made my decision. Let her go, and I'll give you what you really want. Which is Cody Lang. He's the one with the military training, the tools, the connections. I'm just a computer repairman who got in over his head. You want to eliminate the real threat? I'll tell you where he is. Rook's eyes lit up with interest. You'd betray your friend to save a woman who cheated on you? I'd do whatever it takes to keep an innocent person from dying. Melissa's not innocent. She didn't end anyone. She didn't steal from pill sellers or plant evidence or send thugs to beat people up. She just made a mistake. A mistake that started all of this? No, your corruption started all of this. Her affair just gave me a reason to look closer. Rook considered this for a moment. Where is he? First, let her go. No deal. Tell me where Lang is, and then we'll discuss your wife's future. That's when the shot rang out. Martinez dropped like a stone, a neat hole in his forehead. Melissa screamed and dove for cover behind a broken pew. Rook spun toward the door, drawing his tools. "Cody!" he shouted. "I know you're out there." Another shot shattered the window behind Rook, sending him scrambling for cover. I used the distraction to draw my own tools and put 2 rounds into the wall where Rook was hiding. "You want Lang?" I called out. "He's right here." More shots from outside, precise and methodical. Cody was moving positions, keeping Rook pinned down, while I flanked him from inside the church. "This doesn't have to end badly for everyone," Rook shouted. "We can still make a deal." "The time for deals is over," I replied, moving closer to his position. I found him crouched behind the altar, bleeding from a graze on his shoulder. His tool was trained on the doorway, waiting for Cody to show himself. "Drop the tools," I said, pointing my point .357. Rook slowly lowered his pistol and set it on the floor. "You know this doesn't solve anything. I'm not the only one. There are others, bigger fish than me." "You think ending me is going to clean up this town?" "Maybe not, but it's a start." "Nathan," Melissa called from her hiding place, "please, let's just go." "Let's leave and never come back." I looked at her, cowering behind the pew, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "You still don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "This was never about you. You cheating on me was just the catalyst. This is about justice, about consequences, about making sure people like him can't destroy other families the way he destroyed ours." "I didn't destroy anything," Rook said. "Your marriage was already over. I just gave your wife what you couldn't: passion, excitement, a reason to feel alive. You gave her a fantasy built on stolen money and other people's suffering. Everyone's suffering, Nathan. The only difference is how we choose to deal with it." Cody appeared in the doorway, rifle trained on Rook. "You two done with the philosophy lesson? Because we've got company coming." In the distance, I could hear sirens. Backup was on the way. "Oh, what's the plan?" I asked. "Same as it's always been. We finish this." I looked down at Rook, then at Melissa, then back at Cody. 3 choices: end Rook and become a murderer, let him live and watch him escape justice again, or find a third option that would satisfy everyone. That's when I remembered the flash drive I'd given him, the one with all our evidence against him. "Rook," I said, "check your pocket." He reached into his jacket and pulled out the drive, examining it more closely. His face went pale as he read the label. "Copies. Originals already delivered." "You son of a witch." "I sent everything to the FBI, DEA, and state police 3 hours ago, along with copies of the recordings I made during our little conversation tonight." "What recordings?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the voice recorder app that had been running since I'd entered the church. "Confession to corruption, pills selling, and conspiracy to commit ending. Should be enough to put you away for life." Rook lunged for his tool, but Cody's rifle barked once, and the sheriff's hand shattered in a burst of flesh and bone. He screamed and fell backward, clutching his mangled fingers. "Game over," Cody said simply. The sirens were getting closer now. State police, by the sound of them, reinforcements that wouldn't be on Rook's payroll. "What about Melissa?" I asked. I looked at my wife, still cowering behind the pew, and realized I felt nothing for her anymore. No love, no hate, no anger, just emptiness. "That's up to her," I said. "She can stay and face the consequences of her choices, or she can run and spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder." "Nathan, please," she said. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can't we try to work this out?" "Some things can't be fixed, Melissa. Some things stay broken forever." I walked toward the door, stepping over Martinez's body without looking back. Cody fell into step beside me. "Where to now?" he asked. "Away from here. Far away. You know they'll come looking for us. Let them. We've got nothing left to lose." As we walked out of the church, I heard Melissa calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Behind us, Rook was sobbing and cursing, probably realizing that his career, his freedom, and his life were all over. The sirens were very close now. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees as the cavalry arrived to clean up the mess we'd made. But we were already gone, disappearing into the desert darkness like ghosts, leaving behind nothing but bodies and broken dreams and the kind of justice that only comes at the end of a gun. 6 months later, I was living in a different state under a different name, working as a freelance computer consultant and trying to pretend the past had never happened. Cody had disappeared completely. No contact, no forwarding address, no trace. He'd become what he'd always been best at being, invisible. I'd been following the news from my old town through online sources. Rook had been convicted on 17 counts. He'd gotten 25 to life in federal prison. 3 other deputies had been arrested, along with half the town council and 2 county commissioners. Melissa had plea bargained her way out of serious jail time by testifying against Rook and his associates. She'd gotten 2 years probation and community service. Last I'd heard, she'd moved back in with her parents and was working as a cashier at a grocery store. Justice, of a sort. I'd convinced myself I was done with all of it, that I'd moved on and built a new life. But then the call came. "Nathan, this is Ava Monroe. I think we need to talk." I didn't recognize the name or the voice. "I'm sorry. Who is this?" "I'm Daniel Rook's daughter. I know what you did to my father." My blood went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. And I know where you are." The line went dead. I spent the next week looking over my shoulder, changing hotels every night, taking different routes to work. But she found me anyway. I was having coffee at a diner in Phoenix when she walked in. Mid-20s, auburn hair, green eyes that reminded me uncomfortably of her father. She slid into the booth across from me without invitation. "Hello, Nathan. What do you want?" "To thank you." That wasn't what I'd expected. "Excuse me?" My father was a monster. He destroyed my family, our reputation, everything we had, but he was also untouchable, too connected, too smart, too careful, until you came along. I'm not following. You did what the system couldn't do. You brought him down. You gave my mother and me a chance to rebuild our lives without his shadow hanging over us. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception or hidden agenda. So this isn't about revenge? Oh, it's absolutely about revenge. Just not the kind you're thinking. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "These are photos of your ex-wife with her new boyfriend. Turns out she has a type, married men in positions of authority." I looked at the photos without opening the envelope. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I thought you should know that some people never learn, some people never change, and some people deserve whatever consequences come their way." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just providing information." She stood up to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Nathan, if you ever decide to visit our old hometown again, you should know that there are people there who consider you a hero, people whose lives are better because of what you did." She walked away, leaving the envelope on the table. I sat there for 10 minutes before opening it. The photos showed Melissa with a man I recognized as Judge Harrison, the same judge who'd been lenient with several of Rook's associates over the years. They were coming out of the same motel, the Pine Valley Inn, looking guilty and satisfied. Some people never learned, but I had learned. I learned that revenge was a poison that consumed everything it touched. I'd learned that justice was a luxury most people couldn't afford. And I'd learned that sometimes the only way to win was to walk away and let other people destroy themselves. I tore up the photos and threw them in the trash. Then I paid for my coffee and walked out into the Arizona sunshine, leaving the past where it belonged, buried in the desert along with all the other things that couldn't be fixed. But as I drove away, I couldn't help smiling. Because somewhere out there, Melissa was making the same mistakes that had destroyed our marriage. And sooner or later, those mistakes would catch up with her again. Some people never learned, but this time, it wouldn't be my problem to solve. I had a new life now, a clean slate, a second chance, and I intended to make the most of it. The phone in my pocket buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Check your email." I pulled over and opened my laptop. There was a message from an encrypted account with an attachment, a news article from my old hometown's newspaper. Local judge under investigation for ethics violations. The article detailed allegations that Judge Harrison had been accepting bribes and showing favoritism to certain defendants. Anonymous sources had provided investigators with evidence of financial irregularities and inappropriate relationships, I closed the laptop and laughed. Ava Monroe wasn't just Daniel Rook's daughter. She was her father's daughter. Smart, ruthless, and perfectly capable of taking care of business when the situation required it. Some apples didn't fall far from the tree, but sometimes that was exactly what the world needed. I started the car and drove toward the sunset, thinking about second chances and the price of justice and the strange way life had of balancing the scales when you least expected it. Behind me, the past was finally dead and buried. Ahead of me, the future was mine to write. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to seeing how the story ended. 5 years later, the knock on my door came at sunset on a Tuesday evening. I was expecting a delivery, so I opened it without checking the peephole. Melissa stood on my porch, older and thinner than I remembered, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Her hair was shorter, streaked with gray, and there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Hello, Nathan." "Melissa." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "What are you doing here?" "I need help." "With what?" "Everything. I've lost everything. My job, my apartment, my car. I have nowhere else to go." I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had once been the center of my world, who had betrayed me and set in motion the chain of events that had destroyed so many lives. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, "but I can't help you." "Nathan, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible mistakes, but we were married for 8 years. That has to count for something." "It does count for something. It counts as a lesson learned." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know who you are now. I know what you're capable of. And I know that helping you would be the biggest mistake I could possibly make." Tears began forming in her eyes. "I've changed. I'm not the same person I was back then. Neither am I. Nathan, I'm desperate. I've been living in my car for 3 weeks. I haven't had a decent meal in days. I'll do anything. Stop." I held up a hand. "Just stop." "This conversation is over." I started to close the door, but she grabbed the edge of it. "You can't just turn me away. What happened to the man I married?" The kind, gentle man who would never let someone suffer when he could help. "He died the night he found out his wife was sleeping with another man. You ended him, Melissa. You and your boyfriend and all the lies that came after. What's standing here now is someone else entirely." "I don't believe that. I know you, Nathan. Deep down, you're still—" "Deep down, I'm exactly what you made me. Nothing more, nothing less." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. She stood on the porch for another 10 minutes, knocking and calling my name, but I ignored her. Eventually, she gave up and walked away. Through the window, I watched her get into a rusted Honda Civic with a dented fender and drive away into the gathering darkness. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for her. But the larger part, the part that had been forged in the fires of betrayal and revenge, felt nothing at all. Some people never learned. But I had learned. I'd learned that mercy was a luxury you couldn't afford to give to people who would use it against you. I'd learned that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. And I'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was to let them face the consequences of their choices alone. My phone buzzed with a text message from Ava. "Saw the news about Judge Harrison's sentencing. 20 years federal prison. Thought you'd want to know." I smiled and deleted the message. Justice was a slow process, but it was thorough when it finally arrived. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood at the window looking out at the street where Melissa's car had been parked. The space was empty now, like it had never been there at all. That's when another car pulled up, a sleek black BMW with tinted windows. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out, late 20s, blonde hair, confident stride. She looked up at my house, smiled, and started walking toward the front door. I opened it before she could knock. "Nathan Cole?" she asked. "Yes." "I'm Sarah Mitchell. I represent certain interested parties who have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "The kind that involves solving problems for people who can't solve them themselves. People who need someone with your particular skill set." I looked at her for a moment, considering. Then I stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. "Let's talk." As she walked past me into the house, I caught a glimpse of another car parked at the end of the block. Someone sitting behind the wheel, watching. The game wasn't over. It had just evolved. I closed the door and followed Sarah into the living room, already thinking about new possibilities, new challenges, New ways to balance the scales when the system failed. Because that's what I did now. I fixed things that couldn't be fixed through normal channels. I solved problems that couldn't be solved through normal means. I was the last resort for people who had nowhere else to turn. And business, as they say, was booming.